Academic Senate report. Michelle.
Good evening. Well, it's already been an emotional board meeting, but I'm hoping that you will indulge me with a brief moment of silence. I don't even know if I can say this. Woody Childs, who taught here from 1972 to 2001, died last week. He was a great teacher. Well, on the note of the Senate and its work with accreditation, as usual, we've decided to take on the hardest part, the campus climate. We're working on an APBP, which will have its first reading next week regarding student learning outcomes. We will probably be meeting twice as often as we normally meet, so that we'll have 8 meetings before the summer. Tonight, I'm really here, though, to read some resolutions that were begun prior to the accreditation findings. And I'd like to start by reading the conclusion from the accreditation report regarding student services. As you can see, there's quite a few people in the audience tonight representing student services. And this is from page 29 of the evaluation. The visiting team confirmed that COS Student Services enhance student learning by creating and maintaining a supportive learning environment. Students acknowledged repeatedly that the services they received were useful and the faculty and staff within student services were friendly and helpful. COS has a well-established and proficient program review process for student services. However, the college should strengthen its student services by further evaluating the effectiveness of its programs for all students at all locations. And I read that only to say that really, student services is doing an outstanding job, and that is not the reason why I'm here tonight to in any way criticize what's going on there, but rather to suggest that a couple of things would make it even better. You received these resolutions in your email, and the entire school also received them. I'm sorry to say I didn't bring copies with me. There are 2. The first one actually regards your role as the ratifiers of the Student Services Division Chair. And so I think I'll take my time reading that one, and maybe we can discuss it. If not, then I'll go on to the second one. Whereas the organizational structure of Student Services Management at COS is by no means clear, simple, or uniform, nor is it comparable to the organizational structure of Academic Services Management. And whereas the Student Services Division Chair is charged with representing 40 to 50 student services faculty, including full-time and adjunct counselors, other non-classroom positions, as well as adjunct instructors as their faculty liaison to administration. And whereas during the 2012-13 academic year, student services faculty members fall under approximately 10 different lines of report, and whereas the Student Services Administration eliminated the Student Services Division Chair position, which was only temporarily reinstated for 1 semester, and whereas all members of the Student Services Division need faculty leadership and representation in order to function as a division, especially in the areas of budget, expansion of counseling services to multiple campuses, program review, student learning outcomes, and more. Be it resolved that the Academic Senate urges the board to reaffirm elected position of Student Services Division Chairperson. Be it further resolved that any and all duties of the Student Division Chair that have been usurped by the Student Services Administration be immediately returned to the Chair. Be it further resolved that the Academic Senate recommends a restructuring of Student Services Management to eliminate the 10 different lines of report into a single line of report for all Student Services faculty and Division Chair to improve the delivery of services to students. Any questions or comments?
Questions, comments? Second.
Page elect.
I'll leave it up to you.
They're very different. That's why I was wondering if I should stop.
I don't think that my views are different between you, so I'm not listening to both.
Okay. The second one is about the role of chairs and governance. Whereas all faculty members of the Student Services Division are entitled to the same opportunities and rights as other faculty members, including a collegial decision-making process for scheduling and other faculty issues. And whereas the Student Services current administration has enacted many significant and unilateral changes to practices that directly and negatively affect counseling faculty and services, including hindering the ability of faculty to serve on district-wide committees or participate in other professional development opportunities. And whereas these changes were not made in the spirit of participatory governance and were made without prior explanations, reasons, or discussions of the vision of counseling at COS, be it therefore resolved that the Student Services Administration will engage counselors and other student services faculty in creating mutually accepted guidelines for counseling services, which include committee participation and other professional development opportunities. Be it further resolved that the COS Academic Senate Task Force on Participatory Governance meet with student services and administration to help articulate and resolve concerns related to the college's governance structure.
John?
You were kind enough to see that these were sent to the board in advance, so I had a chance to read them pretty carefully. And three things occurred to me. In the last one you read, you talked about creating a mutually accepted guideline. Well, this mutually accepted issues kind of got us where we are, and that historically mutually accepted means we just never have an agreement, and therefore there's no progress made and everything's stalled.
I don't think that's what mutually agreed upon means here.
Well, yeah, well, we've seen it over and over again. We have troubles.
Those are board policy issues. This is internal to them. This is like the math division has a set of guidelines that they
If you're going to
develop.
argue with me, I'll know what I think.
I'm sorry. I just meant mutually agreed, not in the way that we normally think about it.
Well, that's what it says. And, but I also think two other things here. You know, it appears to me that Academic Senate and Costa, you're blending Costa's responsibilities into your actions. And I think that will be kept separate. And I also think you're bypassing a lot of process by coming directly to the board at this time.
You know, I took these to the president. We discussed them. We couldn't come to an understanding, and that's why they're here before you.
Okay?
Anything further?
Michelle, I would just like to add on to what John said, and I guess more in just where we are today with accreditation. I guess I read these resolutions, and I'll be quite honest with you, I was disheartened, because I read these and I think this probably signifies the reason why we're having the issues we are today with accreditation and where we are as a college. And if we continue to focus on these types of things, that I understand your point in being here. I guess what disheartens me is that it's getting mixed with Costa. There's a grievance already that everybody knows about, that's public, that this is already there, and then we bring resolutions to kind of, I feel like, fuel the fire a bit. And I'm not saying that's what you meant.
No.
But I'm
not at
saying in
all.
the public eye, I think as a college and an institution, we need to be careful on how we're presenting and the things we're doing so that things don't get misperceived. And I'm not saying that you're here with that focus, but as a board member, I'm just speaking personally for myself. These are disheartening because we're in such a mode of work and getting things done, and we're asking so much of the faculty and administration here that I think we need to move forward instead of trying to move back. And I'm not saying that's what you intended, but it could be read that way with resolution. Because this is somewhere else already, I guess is all I'm telling you. It's already a grievance. It's been brought up. It has to make its way. As board members, that's how I'm seeing it, and I can be corrected through the process.
If it's already a grievance,
Why are we
then
talking
it's
about
the board and academic center done with it.
The grievance is really not the issue in Senate. This is about our governance. And when we look at a governance structure that has chairs for every division, and all of a sudden we have a chair that is only on a semester by semester basis, that affects in a very negative way all that division. And that is really the issue. This is number 6 on our 10+1, is we have to look at roles of faculty in governance. And when you single out a chair and say that chair does not act the same way as all the other chairs do, that becomes an issue for the Senate. And that chair was duly elected by you all for her term. And we're concerned about what is going to happen to that chair, especially if it's just semester by semester.
Well, that was restored, and to ask the board to reaffirm anything in the future is disingenuous on our part. If we assure you that anything's going to stay the same, not knowing the future about budgets or number of students or anything else, it's a hollow assurance. And I can't even assure you that I'll be here next year.
And I'm sure that you are not going to, now that Jared is chair, probably you won't turn around next week and say, Jared is not chair anymore. And I think that is what happened in counseling, and that is what has frightened people, depressed them. That's why you see the counseling staff here, because they can't count on their chair being there for more than a semester at a time.
Let me respond to that, Michelle. You belabored that point, I think, beyond its usefulness. Because you and I have talked about this. And I'm going to say to you what I said to you. And I think you know this. And the folks who have asked, we've clarified this. When we were in the budget cut mode prior to the passage of Prop 30, and I stood in front of the entire Senate and said this, Sandra and others were there, I've said this. We looked at if we needed to reduce costs to the extreme measures we thought we might prior to the passage of Prop 30. We asked ourselves, what did we look like, because we're down to 8,000 FTES, what did we look like when we were that small before? And one of the things that came up from that analysis historically is that there was a period of time when the college's FTES were smaller, that we had fewer division chairs. We had division chairs who were either combined, or in the case of counseling, we had a division that reported directly to an administrator. They didn't have a division chair. So that's where it originated. It originated out of that budget discussion. When we moved forward, thinking we were going to be in that budget situation, it wasn't just that division. It was the first of what we thought might have to be some other consolidations. When Prop 30 passed and we were asked to reconsider that, you came to me and I said, you're right, let's wait. Let's study this a little bit more. And time was on our side then, because we did sit down after Costa filed the grievance and we said, you know, we will put the division chair back in there. And I apologize, Ed, if this is disclosing something that was discussed in a grievance setting, but what was requested of the college at that time was, if you want us to resolve this matter at this organizational level, we need you to say that you'll never remove that division chair again. And we said, well, no, that's John's point. We can't go beyond what we can do right now, which is, let's put the division chair back in there. We went to the division, and we went to all of you, and we said, we're going to put that division chair back in there. No one ever said for a semester at a time. Those are your words. They're not our words.
I believe I have a memo to that effect.
I've never seen it. I don't believe you got it from me. Okay? So what we said is, we can put the division chair back in, but you're asking us to assure that it's going to be there forever.
No,
and that's-
this is not what we're asking. asking.
No, I know you're
Sorry.
not, I'm talking
No.
about where it was at that time. So what I can say to you clearly now, here and publicly, is that we've put the division chair back in place, we've told them that, and that division chair remains there until either we need some budget or other reason to decide differently, or we negotiate it differently. But that would be true of anything about the divisions or the contract right now, aside from just this issue, because there's nothing that's going to be guaranteed forever.
And that's not what I or the Senate wanted. We want all the chairs to be the same. That's all. And chairs do not serve their terms on a semester-by-semester basis. That's all.
Well, if you have something that says we're willing to put the division chair in there and review it on a semester-by-semester basis, bring it to me, because that was wording that we didn't intend to share with you to create the sense that you have, and I'm willing to rescind that language now.
Thank you. That's
Okay.
all we wanted. That is all we wanted.
And it is, but it is separate and aside from a number of these other things. And the only comment I want to make, because I know we want to move on to some other stuff, but this is important. These were drafted and they were passed by Senate, but they also were not, there wasn't an activity, I don't believe, on Senate's part to talk to all parties involved. This was really just hearing from your faculty members in this division. So you espouse some things here as though they may be 100% true when you didn't actually assess that by talking to administrators in the division, by talking to senior management about this issue. You created these resolutions based on one side of information.
Because we are the faculty voice.
Perfect. But I just want to provide that clarification here for the public and everybody who's listening. These are in a limited context. It's a faculty voice, but they can't stand as documents to be publicly true because they weren't complete in asking all parties involved.
Resolutions are recommendations only.
Right.
Now, if you want us to take your recommendations in the future seriously, then they need to be vetted. If it's just faculty point of view, then we'll look at it that way. Which do you want? You want us to,
I don't think there's anything in here that is not true. Let me put it that way.
well, you,
Now, there are some perspectives that could be different.
but that's, I use the word vetted, okay? It doesn't make this right or wrong. It means you don't know, if you didn't vet it. And that's perfectly all right. If that's the way it is, well, then we'll consider these things unvetted and put however much value on it accordingly. If they're vetted, we're obligated to put more value on it. So however you want to do it, however you want to do these things in the future is up to you.
Daniel,
What do you mean by that?
Go out and when you go out in the world and find out if it's all true or not.
So informed.
Pardon me?
Informed, basically?
Yeah, you know,
Verify.
verify
Check.
by talking to others.
Research.
Maybe talking to you, maybe talking to him, maybe, I don't know what, it depends on what it is you're claiming. It's like a newspaper reporter. If a newspaper reporter, which they do too often nowadays, just goes and talks to one person, then the story reads one way. If they talk to more than one people, then the story becomes more useful. And you feel greater confidence in the reporter's point of view. That doesn't mean the reporter's obligated to do that, but if they do it, you pay more attention to them.
I just want to say, we worked on these for close to a month. They were very different when we started out. And believe me, this I believe to be 100% true, that there are no internal governing rules in counseling, that there is a confusion about who reports to who, that the chair doesn't understand if she is going to be here for more than a semester at a time. All of those things I believe to be are true. Now, the one area where I will admit there's probably a perception issue is on the role that the chair has as far as their budget, their expansion of services. But those are things that all the chairs have promised to do contractually. So what happens there is that the contract has 28 different things that the chair must do. The chair in counseling does not do all of those 28 things. And that's what I'm reporting to you. Not to make any political hay out of this, just to tell you that that is what is happening.
Well, okay, so just for clarification then, Stan, could you just help me out? You're saying this is very different than the grievance. I'm thinking this is kind of the same issue. Can you clarify for me?
Well, the issue that's in grievance is about the role and responsibility of the division chair, the appointment or the decision that the district made about the division chair, which we in the grievance mediation clarified that we were going to restore the division chair. We weren't going to make that elimination. It never went into effect. It was to go into effect, and then we rescinded it before it went into effect.
And I'm just going to say, as a faculty member, I don't have any idea what is in the grievance. I mean, that is not something that is public knowledge.
Right.
Okay, well, it's right, this is public knowledge.
Yeah,
What
the
I'm reading.
grievance log is out there. That's pretty easy for everybody to look at.
But
They're not
it says
secret.
division
They're not
chair.
secrets.
I don't know what happened when they got together. That is something that, so this is completely different than that in my mind. And now, if they have places where they dovetail, that was certainly not intentional.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Michelle. Costa President's report.
Good evening, everybody. I want to share this preamble with everybody. Thanks, Woody. Anyway, we miss him. Now to business. College of the Sequoias Teachers Association is committed to achieving full accreditation. In everyone's interest to do so, our leadership pledges cooperation and support as a means to achieve this outcome. We feel it can be accomplished without altering the integrity of the master agreement. Cooperation and compliance are not mutually exclusive. Additionally, the association also continues to stand willing to meet with the district at any time to discuss resolution to a number of issues, including grievances. The grievances, you must understand, were filed because of district contract violations and the district's recalcitrance to enter meaningful discussion to arrive at mutually beneficial solutions. As a matter of fact, the continuing chorus is, file a grievance if you, Costa, don't like what we're doing. And so we have no other out. We do have to file the grievances because we cannot arrive at solutions by discussion. Achieving resolution would no doubt improve campus climate. We will continue to await the district's call. Also want to make you aware, if you're not, the recent grievance was filed about summer school scheduling and other summer school problems. And the discussion with no resolution took place today. So, but the grievance is filed. Another grievance involving the contracting out of unit members' work will be filed shortly. And this is the one involving BICS and other contractors. And again, subcontracting out members' work is not legal. For today's, and I'm going to have to be going here because my students are waiting, but we also respectfully today to request that AP 3280 about the grants be pulled from the agenda as there is an ongoing arbitration in progress for this. It would be much more helpful to wait until a decision is published. And so we request that. Heard some of the conversations here about communications, and I'll tell you what, I've been part of those miscommunications. Mr. Carrizosa appointed the Costa member to the task force without consulting the member, without consulting us. We looked at the list, and there was a name as Costa representative. And obviously, that's not a very civil or respectful thing to do. It got compounded with Mr. Carrizosa's note under the Costa heading after the first meeting, because the absence of that member who had not been informed of being on the committee at that time was said, hopefully the Costa representative will be there next time. And so, again, to me, that's not very civil. So, if we want to have an inclusive dialogue that embodies the culture of respect, civility, and trust, which is part of the show cause language, then there needs to be some work done. And with that, I'm finished. Any questions?
I have one, Ed.
Yes.
He did see the follow-up email from Steve clarifying where I had in fact invited him early.
I did, but he wasn't available. He did not get it until after the first meeting. And that's something, because I talked to him on the Monday after the first meeting.
But your implication with the comment you made right there is that I knew that, and I didn't, correct?
Well,
Correct.
I don't know what you know. We didn't know any of it until we saw the name. and
Well,
that
yeah, we
circle.
weren't gonna request from you for participation members, but we had invited your member to consider being participated.
That's
the
fine.
same time
but
with everybody
the name Costa appeared behind the members' name. I'm not gonna get into an argument with you or discussion.
Yeah, no
here.
worries.
I've got to,
No worries.
I've got to get, I know that you have a talent for twisting things to your point of view, which is great. I bow down to you for that, because I wished I had that ability. I don't.
You do
I'm-
pretty good.
I'm
You
just
do pretty good.
straightforward in most of it.
Yeah, at
so.
least in your mind. Okay, good night.
Anyway,
Good night.
thank you for the time, and if, I think Lisa will be here if you have any questions on the AP.
Great.
But basically, if you could pull that until the arbitration is settled, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
CSEA report.
First, I would like to say, for those of you out there I know that know Woody, besides being an incredible teacher and an incredible person, I had the pleasure, when he decided to do a great play, Master of Health and Boys, and do it in our theater, to view that. And I have a whole new, I gained a whole new respect for the man himself. He was an incredible individual. And I know every student in this class he touched in one way or another. It is a great loss for this college, because he was a great, great, great man. At last week's study session, you voted to not renew the lease on the CDC, and of course that raised a whole mess of questions from everybody. I've had hundreds of phone calls about it, I mean, from staff, non-staff, whatever else. And some of the questions have to do with the budget. They don't understand the budget. It doesn't agree with their figures, so I'm going to be setting a meeting between Brent and myself and the staff. I'll be meeting with the staff next week, and they have, of course, they have a lot of ideas, so we'll be following up on that. The other thing I'd like to address is item number 9. I have a dress rehearsal. I am late for it now. We open Jekyll and Hyde this Friday. Hope to see you there. See both sides of Jekyll and Hyde. On item number 9, it is CSEA's Sunshine Agreement. The vote was just taken by the negotiating team on Friday, and as per the contract that we agreed to last time, we had salaries and benefits as 2 reopeners automatic and 1 other if we decided to. The vote was taken, and the negotiating team agreed that we just wanted to reopen the 2 reopeners of salary and benefits, and that we would not be reopening any other articles, just so you know, because I have to leave, and I informed John of that once I found out. So when you get to item number 9, CSE will just be reopening our 2 reopeners.
Thank you.
So that's it. Thank you.
Good luck with the play.
Thank you.
We'll be there. You didn't do that on purpose, did you?
I only tried to do his jump.
Okay. I'm thinking, wow, right. It's awesome. Mr. Nickel, we're glad you're here.
Three things. First of all, I want to thank Stan, one of our members, Amy Lilly, is on the accreditation task force. She's on the SLO subcommittee, and I talked to her, and she's fired up. She's excited about the challenge. Second of all, we look forward to our negotiations, which began on April 1st. I want to thank John. He's always very cordial professional to work with the details about setting up the negotiations. So I will be here later when item 7 comes up for the public hearing, but I won't have any further statement. I think our memo speaks for itself. And the third thing, I just want to tell you how we, as COSATA, had to look at the big frame around the negotiations. COS has been through a lot in the past couple of years. We have a new challenge, accreditation. last couple of years, we've really faced and are grappling with two others. One is the reduction from a 10,000 FTE college to an 8,000, which requires all sorts of adjustments. The other challenge, of course, is to start the new programs in Hanford and Tulare, the centers there. And CASAPA has been a big part of both of those. In some ways, it has been a little bit negative for our members, but we've been part of both staffing the centers, having to reduce the number of classes. So we want to continue negotiations in the spirit that we've been helpful in meeting some of the challenges that the college has faced and will face in the next 3 years. Any other questions?
No, appreciate your comments.
Any questions? Thank you.
General obligation bonds, these are announcements only. Next scheduled meeting for Visalia area, Measure I, September 10th, 5:30, and Measure J, September 9th in Tulare. No information on the price tag, that is, just updates on meeting dates.
Correct.
And next we'll move on to information items and discussion items, first reading.
We've got a series of folks chipping in a little bit on the board policy. We just want to touch base on each one of them for you quickly. So if we could go to that and close and start working through these. Policy 2410 is actually back before you now, and you can see what's new is in bold and what's stricken through is proposed for revision or elimination. And it was an attempt on our part to realign this policy 2410 with what we actually worked through at the start of the year through the College Council to kind of try to describe the flow of how a board policy and an administrative procedure is actually proposed, reviewed, and adopted. So there's a flow chart in our BPAP that matches this. And in addition to cleaning up some language to put in the abbreviations and change out titles of some things that were in place, like the cabinet, to what's now in place, like the senior management group. The rest of it really starts on number 3 down below of page 1. And it talks about how the process begins with a board policy or a BP or an AP in question being brought first to senior management. From there, senior management sends that out to all constituents across the college campus, and it begins with a 30-day review period. We picked the 30-day review period because previously there was no time constraint on how this worked. It could go out for a smaller amount of time, it could go out for a longer amount of time. Some made it back, some didn't make it back. They weren't always tracked as closely as we would like. So this 30-day review period allows for most campus constituent groups to meet at least twice, because normally they meet 2 times a month. And then they would have an opportunity to submit responses with any proposed revisions, changes, suggestions back to senior management. Senior management would make a second review of that, and if necessary, send it out for an additional review. If an entity needed more time because they wanted to convene a subcommittee or something, they could request that. And we've had that happen, and we've been able to grant that. But then finally, from that process, they would go from senior management after having gone out to constituency groups, committees, academic senate, and so forth, coming back, and then finally going to college council. And when they hit college council, they would go for a 2-reading cycle, which is again about 1 month. So in a good pattern of not too much controversy and things that are fairly easy to review, revise, and change, 60 to 90 days you could have policy revisions before the board for consideration and action. And this puts in place what we've been practicing the second half of this year, which is why you've seen more board policies coming before you like you are now.
Do you have any, is there any, have all those involved bought into this as being an appropriate procedure?
Yeah, I don't think on this particular sequencing, what we actually spent a lot of time on, John, was building a flow chart to try to describe what we were doing. And once we got that organized and everybody agreed that this is how it works, we actually came back and put these steps in place to match that chart. So with regard to initiating policy and bringing policy through the system to the board for approval, This has everyone's agreement, particularly with the opportunity to request more time or longer periods of time if necessary, and for those to be granted. What it puts in place that had never been there before, though, was a 30-day period to start, and then expecting more time after that, as opposed to it being undefined before.
Academic Senate review.
They have.
So it's vetted, huh?
I'm gonna dream about that one.
Okay, cool.
Okay, next one's 3280.
Yes, this is 3280, and I want to be clear, based on the comments from Ed, this, I am not aware of any grievance that's about grants, which is what this is. It's an academic procedure for how you apply for a grant. And second, that it did go through the process that Stan, the superintendent Carasosa, just spoke of. And so it was out for 30-day review by all constituencies with a chance to give feedback, and went through all of the processes thereafter through College Council, which Costa and Senate and everybody else has a chance to give feedback on.
So until today, you hadn't heard anything?
Well, actually, just,
Just there.
not to defend Ed, but I think what he did, and Lisa, you tell me if this is what he's referring to, the grievance that's pending is under reassigned time, and there's a provision under reassigned time where reassigned time can be awarded for a faculty member who's given a grant. But that's actually in reassigned time, it's not the process for applying for a grant. So you might want to tell Ed it's just separate from what this policy is.
If I may, I think part of the specific concern was you were gonna strike through language. And again, Ed took all of the data with him, but if I remember correctly, the language about following the master agreement and any MOUs as well as any side letters have been identified, I think specific to wage. I don't know exactly what your language is, but I know
Yes.
that's what the concern had to
It's
do
right
with.
there, yeah, and as Jennifer said, we did review all of that, but because those things, I think our rationale in looking at board policies and administrative procedures is because those things are spelled out in the collective bargaining agreement, it's redundant to have them again in an administrative procedure and the board policy.
Well, if the board,
But there's no grievance on this policy.
well, if the board chooses to go forward with this is the first reading, and Costa has another shot at it, second reading.
It would.
So the language that is crossed out in the first paragraph, that was language that during the 30-day review, Costa asked to be added. That's all three of the parts that are crossed out. And, well, actually, the two red parts that are crossed out was language that Costa wanted to add. Are you guys going to get it in color? Okay, so let me read it, sorry. The part that says, in bold, all grant proposals will conform to faculty and staff hours, wages, and working conditions as specified in the appropriate master agreements, memorandum of understanding, side letters, and other accords in the first paragraph. And then the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th paragraph, where it says verifying the grant conforms to faculty and staff hours, wages, and working conditions as specified in the appropriate master agreement, memorandum of understanding, side letters, and other accords. Both of those were, that was language Costa asked to be added. We met in senior management, discussed that, and we thought, our belief is that that is covered in the contract. And so, again, as the Superintendent Carasosa said, it didn't need to be in a procedure for applying for the grant.
Okay, put words in your mouth, and the bold is what Costa recommended.
Yep.
And the nice was crossed it out, and then the other paragraph is not bold,
That
was
was-
existing language.
That was existing language that we also took out based on that conversation.
So I do think that's a good clarification though, because when this policy revision started, there was, where you see bold and strike through, there was no language. So it could have been brought to you without that at all, had we chose to revise it that way at senior management. But what this shows you is what Costa requested be added with the bold and the strike through. We're just showing you that they requested that be added, and we deleted that, we're not making that recommendation because it's covered in the master agreement.
Well, it's what was here, that being taken out as well.
Yes.
2, 3, and 4 paragraph.
That
Correct.
one, yeah.
And this is, you're just talking about the process for
Applying for a grant, so
applying.
getting approval to apply for a grant. So if you want to apply for a grant, or you become aware of a grant, you want to apply for a grant, you follow this procedure. There's a one-page form you fill out. You turn it into your appropriate supervisor, who then gets approval at senior management for it. So it's solely talking about the process for applying for a grant. And again, any things in the master contract would be followed at that, during that process. Okay.
I have the next two. I have a new legally required U policy, 3440, which talks about service animals. This policy was created to comply with recent changes in federal law. Community colleges are required to permit service animals to include a miniature pony on the campus. The policy will also be applicable to individuals who are also training service animals, which we have seen on our campus. The second one that I have for your review is Administrative Policy 3560, which reflects amendments to the Business and Professional Code regarding alcohol beverages on our campus. And basically, that first paragraph in bold is the additional text, and really cites that campus police has primary responsibility of enforcement of alcohol laws on the campus.
On that. So 4020 is on program curriculum and course development, modification and discontinuance. This is additional language requested by the Community College League of California. You can see the new language in bold on the third paragraph, all new and modified courses programs, and the new language, deleted courses and programs should be approved by the board. In the last paragraph on the front page, all of that is new language required by law. You go to the back page, everything on the back page is new language, which is required by law. And again, you don't have the part in red, but where you see in the second paragraph on the back and the third paragraph on the back, in consultation with the Academic Senate, is actually in red, and that's additional language that Senate asked to be added that we included. So we're trying to show you what additional language we added based on Senate's recommendation.
Where's that?
In the second, where it says, on the second page, credit hour, second paragraph, it says, the superintendent president in consultation with the Academic Senate.
Oh, yeah, it is a little bit earlier.
Yeah, that was added in the next paragraph, beginning the superintendent president in consultation with the Academic Senate, and below that, 3 lines below that, superintendent president in consultation with the Academic Senate. That was their language that we added. So that's an overview of that one. Any questions on that one? Yeah, the next one, 4105, which is the distance education student authentication process. Again, this is a revise by the Community College League of California, and then there's also in red is the Subcommittee of Academic Senate on Distance Education added a large number of language to this because of new policies and procedures that are required by the state as well as processes that they've gone through. So everything that's underlined on page 1 under B2 and B3 is new language by the law. Under B4, that is all new language, but it also was approved by the Distance Education at COS Committee and the Academic Senate. On page 3, again, this is law under D, and under E, and starting in the second paragraph under D is language from Academic Senate and their subcommittee on distance education, and letter E is added language from Academic Senate and their distance education committee. Questions on that one? There's a lot of laws and regulations on distance education. We try to get them all in one. 4106, awarding of certificates. There's only one addition here, and this is how we revised it to match new certificate forms that we have. And the only exception, this is about who is going to print and award the certificates. The exception is for certain state requirements, police, fire, and allied health. They have specific certificates that they must provide, And so it's different than our format, so they'll print them themselves. And then on the back is how, under D, is how, who signs off on it. Any questions?
I was wondering when Michelle has time to teach.
8 to 12.
Okay, board members, any questions on any of those board policies, administrative procedures? Thank you, Francis, thank you, Jennifer.
We have to vote to take them on to the second reading.
Information only, right? No
Yes,
vote on
for,
first
for,
reading.
for a first reading, they come here for information, they'll be back for a second reading now as an automatic follow-up to this, and we'll take action on them second reading.
We don't have to go through them all over again.
Correct.
Well,
We do or we don't?
We don't.
I'll just say that I for one, unless something comes up, I don't know about, I think these are quite acceptable. Even Michelle's opinion.
Even though we can't see the red, just so you know, I think that's intentional. Okay, the next item on the agenda is our consent calendar. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. An item may be removed from the consent calendar at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees or any person in the audience and considered as a separate agenda item. Does anybody have any items to be removed from our consent calendar? We have our minutes of our previous meetings and play sessions, the personnel report, payment of bills, the working budget, and the summer school health fee waiver.
I move we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. First item of action this evening is our public hearing on the district and CASAFA's initial collective bargaining proposal for a successor contract.
Good evening. The master agreement between the district and CASAFA is set to expire on June 30th of 2013. In anticipation of the expiration of the master agreement, both sides came to the February 11th board meeting with sunshine proposals. This began the first step in the negotiation process. Since the February 11th board meeting, both of those proposals have been available for public review in the Office of HR. It's been over 30 days now, and tonight I'd like to have a public hearing held which would allow the public an opportunity to comment on both the district's and CASAFA's sunshine proposals.
Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Okay, with that, the next action would be that the board acknowledge that both the districts and CASAFA's sunshine proposals did go through the process, and we are now available to start negotiating.
Is there any board comments, or can I get a motion to accept?
I so move.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the successor contract from CASAFA, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. 5-0. Number 8, our public hearing for CSEA.
In a similar scenario, back in October of 2012, the district and CSEA agreed to a 3-year contract. However, one of the provisions of that 3-year agreement was that both sides would be able to sunshine 3 items during the spring semester of 2013. At that February board meeting, the district sunshined salary and benefits in one article, that one article being transfers, transfer language within the CSEA master agreement. For the last 30 days, the district sunshine proposal has been available for public review in the Office of Human Resources. And at this time, I would again ask the board hold a public hearing on the district sunshine proposal with regards to reopeners with the CSEA master agreement.
Open the public hearing. Do we have any public comments on the district's reopener collective bargaining proposal to CSEA? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Do you have any board comments, or can I get a motion to accept the proposal?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, John. Number 9, presentation of CSEA reopener bargaining proposal.
Not done with me yet.
I'm not.
Steve Lamar mentioned, he's a CSEA president, earlier that the CSEA bargaining unit did elect to open up 2 items for reopeners this spring semester. Those items, he indicated, were salary and benefit. However, according to Steve, the bargaining unit opted not to open up an article that they were entitled to open up. So I do not have anything in writing. I will get something from Steve tomorrow, which indicates they desire to open up salary and benefits. But in anticipation of this coming to my office, I would ask that the board acknowledge receipt of Steve's statement that he intends to provide a sunshine proposal to the district, and also announce that that sunshine proposal, when it is received, will be found within the Office of Human Resources from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, for the public an opportunity to review it. And finally, I wish the board would announce that there will be a public hearing on CSEA's reopener sunshine proposal at the April 8th board meeting.
Do I have a motion to accept, or any board comments or questions of John? Do you have a motion to accept the reopen bargaining proposal?
So move, including the recommended additions for Mr. Brash.
I'll second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor say aye. Motion carries. Are we done with you, John?
Yes.
Our next item is the roll call vote on COS's 2013 accreditation response plan, which I know you've already covered. Or was that basically your report, Jennifer? Okay, do we have a motion to accept our accreditation response plan, resolution 2013-04?
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments? Roll call, Jennifer, please pull the board.
Trustee Zumwalt.
Yes.
Trustee Mann. Trustee Nunez.
Aye.
Trustee Sherman.
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza.
Aye. 5-0, motion carries.
Yes, but you're not done with me yet.
Next item of action is curriculum. Dr. Lozano.
Okay. As we do on a monthly basis, I'm presenting you with the curriculum report for this month. All of them basically are for the issues we've talked about in the past of removing repeatability. So these were existing courses that were repeatable in the past but are no longer repeatable. All of the courses on the first page are removing the repeatability. All but 2 of the items on the second page are for removing repeatability. The COM 4 and the Fashion 161 were for a 5-year review. On the third page, where am I on now? Third page, all of the courses are for repeatability, except for the last one, which is an optional lab to be provided to support students in the geology class. And on the last page, the math department is rewriting their calculus sequence in order to better articulate with the 4-year institutions, which should say 4-year institutions. We are deleting the last 4 classes, most of them because of the repeatability issue, and the last 2 because they haven't been offered and no longer are part of the program. Okay. Any questions?
Any questions of a motion to approve curriculum modified?
I move that we approve the curriculum modified for use.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 12, establishment of separate fund to account for the 2013 sale of the Linwood Farm proceeds.
Good evening, as was confirmed last week at our joint board meeting with Visalia Unified. We are set to close escrow on the sale of the Linwood Farm at the end of this month for $2.5 million. The board has made it clear in previous board meetings that they would like to set that money aside in a special reserve to be used on future capital improvement projects. To do so, we need board action through a roll call vote to set up a special reserve in the name of Linwood Farm sale proceeds.
Any questions of Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Calvin.
If we set up a fund, as you described, the board, I want to verify, the board has the ability in the future to change that if it sees fit, correct?
Correct.
We could turn around and decide to spend it on cost of salaries for the next year.
Absolutely.
Correct.
That's your question?
That was my question.
Absolutely. Is that a rhetorical question?
Well, I did that for emphasis, the point being that if the board completing it at its own prerogative,
At our discretion.
to earmark it in the future as it may see fit.
That's correct.
But I can assure you, as long as I'm on the board, I'm not gonna vote for the latter part of this statement, so.
Never say never.
You're gonna be quoted in the paper tomorrow.
I move we establish the accounts for the sale of the farm, Linwood Farm.
Second?
I'll second.
Shannon, can you please poll the board? Trustee Sherman?
Aye.
Trustee Mann? Trustee Nunez?
Aye.
Trustee Zumal?
Aye.
Trustee Cardoza?
Motion carries. Item 13, bond anticipation notes.
Now for the real fun. 2 weeks ago, we had a special study session for the board where we studied some options on how to pay off our existing bond anticipation notes. You'll recall that in the fall of September of 2011, we took out bond anticipation notes to the tune of close to $12 million with issuance costs. Those come due September of 13. We presented at the time 2 options for paying those off. Tonight we have Cheryl Vesley from Dale Scott and Associates back with us to discuss those 2 options. The first one being tweaked just a little bit from our special study session, as well as in response to that change in option 1, we've added a 3rd option as well. And I'll introduce Ms. Vesley again. She can walk us through her presentation, and then we'll be open to questions and or dialogue on that subject. Do we have a PowerPoint?
Good evening. So I have the presentation similar to the one that we showed 2 weeks ago. With the changes. We've added a 3rd option, and then we have also added the sensitivity analysis in the back from the question that came up about if assessed valuations didn't grow quite as quickly as we were projecting, or 40%. So the first thing,
I think I'm the designated.
oh, this doesn't work.
Oh, is that it?
Yes, that's it. Again, so you remember this one, we've issued Series A and Series B, 18.5 million unissued, and then there's $11.5 million band outstanding that's going to be due this September.
I missed the first part.
And then this again is showing the assessed valuation growth. The actual included, the original projection is in the brown color, and we're actually ahead of what we projected this year, so that's nice. Oh, I'm sorry, I that's not true. So it's a little bit below what we projected, when we projected the brown for the assessed valuation. And then on the right-hand side is the tax rate projection, and that's just for the Series A and the Series Bs, not for the band takeout. I'm moving kind of quick because you see. And then the next page again is the AB 182 proposed legislation. This is most likely to go into effect at the beginning of 2014, but it would include total debt service to principal bonds not to exceed 4 to 1. Right now, there is no limit to that. All cap appreciation bonds are callable after 10 years, and again, there's no limit like that right now. Maturity of bonds not to exceed 25 years, and interest rate on each bond not to exceed 8%. So that's the AB 182 proposed rules. So option one, we did realize an error in the numbers that we had previously. Piper Jaffray was working on option one, we were working on option two, and when we started cross-checking the numbers, we realized that we weren't able to replicate the numbers, and so there was a small tweak here, and the bands, the GO that would have to be issued to take out the band now go out for 32 years instead of 26 years.
So the difference is $10 million in interest costs over the life of those, between what you proposed 2 weeks ago to now.
It is, because the capital appreciation bonds now have to go out further, the interest cost has to go up.
But it's still staying below 8%?
It still stays below 8%, it still stays below the 4 to 1. So all the other things do match, but it has increased the maturity of the bond.
It's also still callable after 10 years. The major difference is 2 weeks ago, the numbers that we gave showed being able to pay off in 26 years, and it just didn't work. So we were not able to stay in the neighborhood of the spirit of AB 182. Now we're at 32 years for that option.
In option two, it stays the same, and this is again, if we repay the band now, it's fund on hand for the $4 million, and then roll over the band to another band that's due 2016 and pursue a GO bond reauthorization option. So these numbers have all stayed the same. So there would be, if you did that, there would be only current interest bonds would be issued, no capital appreciation bonds, 25-year repayment term, and the repayment ratio would be under 2 to 1. So that's all the same for us. And here's again is a comparison of the two options, option one and option two. And you can see the tax rate again on the right hand, the left-hand side is comparing the debt service. The blue is option one, and the red line would be option two, the reauthorization bond. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the total tax rates. It is staying under $25. If you did go forward with option one, it still remains under the $25. It's just a longer term now, so it goes out farther. I think, can you go back one more?
You got option three.
There should be option three. Okay, right.
Nope.
Two.
Jim, do you use
We've got option 3 in our
I
packet.
do too?
Yeah, go ahead, if you have a page three,
Okay.
we have a page
Okay,
three.
great.
the, especially the one we seen on Friday? Did you change that?
You know what, I didn't get to it.
We-
It's in their packet, the packet's correct.
Okay, so option three, we wanted to give you, because we extended the term for option one, the maturity of option one, we wanted to show you a third option. And this is kind of a combination of everything, where you pay the band down with $4 million on hand. You issue what you can now with the GO bond structure that stays in that 25-year maturity schedule. So you'd be able to issue about $3.55 million in general obligation bonds now. And that would only go out for 25 years, and it would stay under that $25 cap. And then you would roll over the remaining of the band into 2016 and pursue GO bond reauthorization or paid off the certificates of participation. And if you, in this case, because it's a smaller GO reauthorization bond election, the new tax rate would be 2.61 instead of being $5 for the full amount, and now it's about $2.61 for 100,000 with that valuation. So it's kind of a partial of all the different of the two options.
Do you show an overall interest payout for the whole life of those two, option 3? I don't see that.
Let's see, so capital appreciation bonds,
Is that the two items up there on page 9?
I think I do, yeah, is that what I have it? Okay.
Page 9 at the top of the page.
Yeah, that's $8 million, 8.4 million.
Mhm.
That's
So
it?
it'd be, that's a total debt service, so of that, about, 3.55 is principal, so the total interest would be, about $4 or $5 million. And then for the GO bonds, it would be, about 3 million. I'm sorry, for the second, if you did the reauthorization, the second portion of the GO bonds would be about, 3 million.
Do you understand it, Kim? I don't understand option 3 yet. I'm not, I don't know if I didn't follow it or, because option 3 all of a sudden hits me as the best option.
Well, except for, you start with 12, you pay down by the 4, and that's the senior reimbursables, you're left with 8. You can take almost half, but say $3.5 million, and put that in a current general obligation bond, and then that fits into the spirit of future legislation, AB 182. You can fit that into 25 years, assuming a 4.25% AD growth rate. But you're essentially kicking the can down the road on the remaining $5 million. The other half would be $4.5 million plus issuance costs. So you're kicking the can down the road for 3 years. So you're continuing with bans for $5 million.
What's the total cost? That's what I'm going to add. I mean, is it cheaper than 24 million? Or do we not know what it's going to be?
This would be, option 3 would be, if you go out for the reauthorization bond, election, and you issue it with a new tax rate cap.
Oh, okay,
So
so we
you-
got to go back to the tax
You
rate.
have to
In
go back to
option
the
1 and
tax
option
rate.
2. I mean, in option 2 and
Yeah,
option 2.
okay, yeah.
Well, we have
So it would be
the $5 million in 2016 rate. One option would be to go through a reauthorization. If we have extremely high AD growth between now and the next 3 years, you could conceivably issue more GO bonds under our current authorization, authorized but unissued. We'd essentially be in the same situation 3 years from now, only instead of 12 million, with 5.
No, I understand. I wasn't understanding it. Under option 1, 10 years from now, we can pay it off.
Yeah, I mean, you need something to pay it off with.
I understand.
Greg's volunteered to write a check.
Could be that reserve account you set up in the last meeting.
The 2.5 million may grow to 10 million or whatever. So my question is, in 10 years, how much are we going to owe?
In 10 years, yeah, so you would probably, let me see, you would pay off, how much principal would you actually pay off?
It'd be the outstanding principal.
In 10 years, yeah, so you haven't paid much principal off, a little principal, so you would owe basically the same in accumulated interest.
So we probably owe 8 million.
Plus any accumulated interest, yes.
We don't know what accumulated interest would be. So that may not be an option. 10 years from now, we got $10 million and we want to just pay it off. That's an option.
When it comes up, when that would be helpful is if you had great assessed valuation growth and you can in a sense refinance it, and you'd be able to issue bonds that aren't these capital appreciation bonds because of your such high assessed valuation growth.
And
You'd
we
be
still
able-
don't have to go back to the voters.
You wouldn't have to go to the
Correct.
voters.
If under option 1, would we fit under the potential proposals under AB 182?
No, that's why we showed options, so you would be going into through 32 years.
All except that one.
All except for that one, that's true.
And so what happens in that? Nothing? I mean, is it grandfathered in?
Yes, that legislation is not passed yet, it's just what's been proposed.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able
You see the negative.
And we'd be close, Ken, it'd be instead of 26 years, it'd be 32. We're 6 years out, but we would get it, we would hit all the other criteria.
Right, all the other criteria.
Stays below a payback ratio of 4 to 1, stays below interest rate of 8%, it's callable after 10 years.
Kind of maybe a weird question. Had we chosen to do so, could we have borrowed, as opposed to using the internal borrow, the $2.5 million from the sale of the farm? to pay down debt now and recoup that when we could issue additional bonds under our $60 million authorization. In other words, we're in essence using $4 million of funds that we, I'm not suggesting we do that, but I'm just throwing that
I
out there.
think the question, we asked that during our retreat or something, and I think the question was whether the bond could be able to pay back a loan.
Right.
That was the question. So if the college, we got 2.5 million coming in by the end of the month, can we use that? And instead of financing the 8 million, we would only finance 5.5 million. And then whenever the things work out down the road, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, when there's equity, can we borrow that 2.5 million from the Tulare bond to pay back the 2.5 million that we're using for the assets here?
In a future issuance, payback.
But I think our concern was that under Prop 39, we'd be using those resources to pay back an interfund loan as opposed to actually applying them toward the cost of direct construction, and we weren't sure about that.
I mean, that would be a good question, because if we can use the 2.5 million, it's going to really drop the interest cost in Tulare.
Even if we pay the interest back to ourselves.
Right.
That'd be a question for our bond counsel.
That's one thing.
But you're really needing us to approve this tonight so we can move on to getting it done. And otherwise, we're running up against our, September deadline?
We do, but we can accept a friendly addition to this, if there's something like that.
I mean, even if we use, let's say half of it.
Yeah, we're not
All
going
of
to
it
get 2.5 million right now anyway, are we?
No.
Is that coming in over a period of time?
No. it
The
comes in all at
Visalia
once.
farm sale is a lump sum.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're thinking of the reimbursement for the cost from the city of
Oh,
Tulare.
okay.
Now, we're talking about that two other things. If we take an action tonight, what we can deal with that. And next year, 2 years, but whatever, we decide we want to do that, can we come up with capital like that and pay some of it down? Or you have to wait 10 years? How's that hard?
I would think you have to wait 10
You
years.
have to wait 10 years.
Just like in our current series, we have Series A and B for all three of our SFIDs, and those are all non-callable. And so these would be non-callable until 10 years. We couldn't pay them off.
That's right. Yeah, they're not callable for 10 years.
I know that based on our presentation we had at our study session, that obviously option one was more than slightly different than what it is today. Having said that,
$10 million.
yeah, having said that though, we're still, we're still at a less than a 4-to-1 ratio, assuming our numbers are right now. And that kind of puts some certainty into this whole process, whereas options 2 and 3, we still have some decisions to make down the road. And we still have some bans outstanding.
I think we're taking, like you said, we're taking one down the road.
And we still have the potential of going back to the voter. And I know from the dollars and cents standpoint, I mean, you just do the math and do the numbers, over time, it costs us less money to go back to the voters and ask them to change the original vote that they, by modifying the amount. And if we do that, we probably have to say, okay, you authorize us to issue 60 million in exchange for this additional $4 or $3, and maybe we'll lower it down to 40 million. I just, the voters I talk to start shaking their head when I talk to them about all this stuff. And granted, the history shows that these things have passed. Maybe they just passed because people are not willing to take the time to.
Or they don't understand.
Or they don't. So, we still have some options in 10 years down the road, of being able to hopefully issue some of these bonds and pay down some of these roadblocks. So,
So at this point, with assessed values where they are, we are maxed out, and we're going out, at the most, on this last series, we'll be going out 32 years.
Yes.
And we're maxed out. And in 10 years, we look again at assessed value, and see if there's more capacity there, is that correct?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you'd know through option one that if nothing changed and assessed valuations didn't improve, you'd take an action to ultimately clear this debt. We get the current looming debt we have out in front of us off the college's landscape.
And we really don't have to talk about it for 32 years if we don't want to.
But I don't know.
Well, but we stay within the 25 bucks.
Ken, I think you're getting ready to make a motion, I think, that if you do, is there some way we can tie into that motion, that 2.5 million, if that can be repaid? At least let's give ourselves the option to.
I think that's
A
what Rick
friendly
was insinuating.
amendment. A friendly amendment. You'd like to authorize us on option one, it sounds like, with the caveat being, in the next week, Dale Scott and associate their office, and I will get a hold of our bond counsel, David Casanoka, and discuss if we have additional cash that we wanted to loan to be paid back by future issuance from the existing Measure J. Is that?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Basically, we're trying to say if we're going to pay that much in interest, why can't the college keep it? Is in essence what we're saying, correct?
If we're borrowing from our,
Actually, the college is not keeping it, it's the taxpayers that are keeping it.
yeah, if we're borrowing from ourselves now, the question will be, can we use bond proceeds from adjusted assessed valuations in the future to pay that back?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the question.
And if we can't, we can't, but your motion could include the opportunity for us to explore that, and if so, build that into the final
You
deal.
know, we may not even want.
And I understand that this would, in some way limit our ability to do some other projects with these funds.
Yeah, plus, the California future is not certain.
Yeah.
And do we
Yeah.
want to be able to have the money in case we?
I think just ask the question, I think once we get down to it, we're probably not gonna wanna do that, but it would be nice to know if we decided we could pay it.
No.
But I think we may wanna use it in other areas.
If I agree. Now, if we go this route, what could happen if we put the general fund at risk?
Option one?
Yeah.
Nothing?
We do have a sensitivity analysis, John, we did kind of ask for it last time. If John, you snap one or two.
What if we have another 09?
Which page, Brett?
Your tax rates would just, you mean with the assessed valuation dropping? You would just have higher tax rates, but it doesn't hit,
Yes, we have.
there's no rule that it can't go higher than $25. The tax rate, so the tax rate might go higher. It would go like the assessed valuation.
Yeah.
The $25 is at the time, which is,
That's correct. So if the assessed valuations drop, so they have
Not
to do
based on
it.
assessed value.
well, Ken, are you like it all option one?
Well, I think it's the lesser, I think it's the.
Just like the
Just like it is, let's put it that way. The more we look at it, the more it changes.
Well, Lori, do you have the same view as Ken, option one, just like option one release?
Yes. I guess with the future so uncertain, I'm okay with locking in something. Yeah. Earl, I'm probably going to be gone too, so.
Do you wanna make the motion?
Did you want to look at
Yeah,
this,
you are.
Yeah, I think we want to look at the information that John requested.
the sensitivity analysis?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's not up here, but we have it, you have it in your packet.
Page 13, right?
Oh, you answered my question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, I would move that we adopt proposal number one as presented.
And I'll second that.
The move is seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor of option one for our bond anticipation note signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries by vote. Thank you. 14, change orders. Eric, one day you will be at the beginning, but maybe a while till we see you again on change orders, I think.
There's good news here. These are the last two change orders for the Tulare Center, as we were told. First one is for the Phase 1 state project. We have just 4 here for the electrical, finished carpentry, painting, and terrazzo. I would like to note to the board that as we got signatures from the contractors, you notice you never have signatures here, and that's so you have the clearest copy, but I've always got the signatures with me. The electrical contractor refused to sign their change order, even though they had signed their potential change order for the same amount. So I have to tell you that the electrical one will be a unilateral change order, should you take the vote. No other changes here. Most of them are the cleanup change orders. You see a lot of back charges. This is where one vendor messed up, another vendor had to clean up for them, and there's a charge going to those vendors. At this point, it still leaves us with $261,000 in a contingency fund. There is a pending claim from the electrical contractor. We briefly discussed that. Outside of that, there are no known claims for the Phase 1 state project. So with that, it is recommended that the board approve the change orders for the electrical, finished carpentry, painting, and terrazzo flooring portions of the Tulare Phase 1 state project.
Have a motion?
Well, where's the $2 million coming from out of the bond to pay back the bond?
It would be out of the Tulare Phase 1 local project, the Tulare Phase 3 project, and then in that bond, Measure J, we also have a general pot of money to help us with the relocation from the Linwood Farm. There's savings in all of those other projects.
Up to $2 million.
Correct.
We're not gonna get a surprise, and it's gonna be $1 million.
I'm hoping you get a surprise that's 2.5.
All right.
And I can explain that a little more under 3, but no, there's no other known surprises yet.
And a lot of what's happened is closed and done, right? You couldn't have anything come back out of these.
The window is closing very, very quickly for that.
I move we approve change order number 14 on the agenda.
Okay, for a second?
Second.
Moved by Greg, seconded by Earl, I believe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 15.
For the Tulare Phase 3, same situation, we're closing them out, and to better explain the window of opportunity for someone to pending litigation, during this notice of completion process, we have a 35-day window for vendors to file claims, and that's basically their notice of that window. Most of these are in that phase right now where we filed a notice of completion with the county, but we have not got the 35-day period closed. We have the one known pending litigation with the steel contractor that we've discussed. That potential, just so you know, Ken, has the potential to bring back more money into the pot, but we're not counting on that at this point. So the $2 million that we've discussed about making savings from the Measure J among various projects does not include the pending litigation that we may win, or we think there's no merit to the contractor's claim. We're holding that money just in case, even if we were to lose and give them that money, it still has $2 million in the pot.
It doesn't dig into.
Roughly $2 million. We're juggling balls at this point. So with these change orders here, for the electrical, different contractor, finished flooring, janitorial, and utility systems, we have the same general cleanups of the end of the project. I'm being told this is the last change order for the Tulare Phase 3 project. In this one, part of that $2 million, there is still $392,000 in contingency. And again, that's what we counted broadly as we tried to come up with the $2 million for savings for Measure J. So it is recommended that the board approve these change orders for the electrical, finished flooring, janitorial, and utility portions of the Tulare Center Phase 3 Farm Animal Complex project.
And all of the furnishings and everything are taken care of?
There is money earmarked for those. In Tulare Phase 3, we have not ordered a lot of that furniture at the direction of Dr. Dudo. We have the list established. We're just waiting for folks to get settled, and then when he gives us the word, we're going to order the remaining amount. But that money is earmarked.
I move we approve change order 15. I'll second.
Moved by Earl, seconded by Greg. All those in favor of approving change orders, signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries, meeting adjourned.
Lori, before you
Yes.
do that, if I may, we had, at the beginning of the meeting, we had a young man talk about parking for veterans. And I'd like to see Shakara Sosa go through some internal process to decide whether or not he wants to bring an issue forward to the board for consideration. And perhaps the next board meeting either have some explanation of why he doesn't think we should bring it forward or bring it forward.
We will do that.
How many vets do we have?
Yeah, I was gonna say at least two.
You know, you wake up this bench or disabled bench, I don't know what you say.
Okay. Well, I had made notes to do some comparative research and took down the information that the gentleman provided us, so we'll follow up.
And you notice I left it very open, I didn't suggest what I think you should do.
I understand.
Appreciate that. Thank you, everybody.